So I haven't done one of these Robert Reich is a terrible economic liar videos in a while, so we're going to jump right into myth number 5. In case you're curious, I've done 4 other videos on Mr. Reich explaining why he's wrong about his debunks about our economy. And let's just get right into video number 5.
Many of the most vocal proponents of the so-called free market have for years been actively reorganizing the market for their own benefit.
And pause. Here's how quickly and deceptively we get into this thing. Reorganizing the market. How? He's going to get into all of it. But reorganizing the market, and we all know what that means. That means that taking my money that I've accumulated in the marketplace and using it to buy politicians to tilt the market in my favor, to create rules and regulations that give me an unfair advantage over my competition. Immediately, right out of the gate, he's saying what they're doing is manipulating the market by using the government. That's not the free market. Immediately. So it's just funny how quickly he goes right into a lie.
They don't want us to notice what's happened over the last half century as big money has corrupted our politics. Laws that limit campaign donations have been weakened or repealed.
The only reason we need to limit campaign donations is because our politicians are crooked and have too much power over the economy, which means that people who want to gain an economic advantage over their competitors can go to politicians and buy economic favor. It's a constant struggle to try and explain to people on the economic left that the problem isn't that these people have too much money, it's that the government has too much power and they're willing to sell that power to the highest bidder. Seems like an easy thing to understand.
And corporations to essentially bribe politicians. Antitrust laws have been virtually abandoned, with the result that big corporations have got much bigger and mergers and acquisitions far more common. So-called right.
There is no commentary on this, by the way, as to why that's a bad thing, because you can't point to a time in the past where the combination of a monopoly, or where a monopoly has existed and it's resulted in a broad negative outcome for consumers. You can't point to it. People will immediately go to Standard Oil as a monopoly that existed. They weren't even a monopoly. There were other companies in competition with Standard Oil. Standard Oil just controlled an overwhelmingly huge share of the market. And they did that by keeping costs and quality lower for consumers. So the fear of monopolies is A, that a company will corner the market, and B, that once they have the market cornered, they'll drive up prices. You can't point to that in history. So he doesn't want to get into antitrust in terms of how it's a negative outcome for consumers.
To work laws have made it harder to organize labor unions. So the unionized portion of the private sector workforce has dropped to just 6%. High-paid bankers have pocketed huge sums while exposing America to extraordinary economic risk.
I want to point out again that what we were talking about at the beginning of this video was the free market. Now he's using an example of one of the most highly regulated parts of our economic sector. Just want to make sure we're all on the same page here.
After the 2008 Wall Street crisis and the taxpayer...
There's a massive bailout. He drew that on his little whiteboard, right? Was that bailout part of a free market? No, that's socialism for big businesses. Free market advocates don't believe in bailouts.
Funded bailout of the big banks, only one top banker went to jail. Corporations have been able to use bankruptcy to get out of labor contracts. But
bankruptcy is a structure, is a contractual structure created by who? The government. Because it provides legal government protections for people who aren't paying their bills anymore. And the government's picking and choosing, and this is what he's going to get into, who can and cannot declare bankruptcy and what assets they can and cannot protect. All of that, including bankruptcy itself, is a government construct designed to provide legal protections for people who don't want to pay money to the people that they owe it to.
But homeowners cannot use bankruptcy to protect their homes from being taken back by lenders. And former students can't use bankruptcy to protect their earnings from being garnished to pay their student loans.
Student loans, which by and large wouldn't exist in the way that they do if the government wasn't involved in the student loan business. So the reason student loans you can't declare bankruptcy on student loans is because these are federally underwritten programs by and large, right? That the federal government essentially mandates that you hand out, and therefore you can't go back and declare bankruptcy on them. So all of this, everything he's talking about, is the antithesis of how a free market would function. All of this is examples of how the government has intervened into the marketplace to change how things would naturally function under a free market system.
Hedge fund and private equity managers get a low tax rate on their incomes, courtesy of
taxation is purely a function of the state. So again, this is a video about how the free market is a bad thing.
A special loophole that neither Democratic nor Republican presidents have closed. Lower trade barriers have enabled corporations to outsource work to nations that pay lower wages.
By the way, this is the same guy. I bet you I'm going to have to go out and find a Robert Reich video talking about Trump's tariffs. When I tell people that you're mad at Trump's economic policies, and I'm trying to explain to you that Trump is just a moderate Democrat from the 1990s, Democrats like trade barriers. They like tariffs. They don't want to work to be outsourced. They want to protect the American worker. They don't like illegal immigration. Look at old speeches from Clinton, both of them, Hillary and Bill, Obama, Biden. We have to protect American workers from illegal immigration. We have to have trade barriers to protect the American worker. These are Democrat policies that all of a sudden you're being told to hate by MSNBC. So now Trump's a horrible tyrant because of tariffs and, by essentially enacting protectionist economic policies that Democrats have supported for decades. And Reich is just a little bit behind. He doesn't understand. He hasn't gotten the memo from leftist hierarchy that, hey, we don't like these things anymore because Trump's doing them.
And then sell the goods back to the United States. Americans get the benefit of cheaper goods, but lose unionized manufacturing jobs. It's been a vicious cycle. Each change in laws has ratcheted wealth and power upward.
One of the interesting things he doesn't talk about, by the way, when it comes to trade barriers, if you want to protect good American jobs, right, then let's not have a corporate tax in the United States. Let's reduce our regulatory environment so that it is cheaper to do business in the United States than it is to do business in China. This is the problem with the economic left in this country. This is the problem with Robert Reich, and this is the misunderstanding of the, quote, free market. The free market is not why a company that had built a factory and has the infrastructure and everything else and trained employees and all that stuff. The free market is not the reason they decided to close up shop here, endure the expense of moving everything overseas, and then pay to re-import it to the United States. That's not the reason they did that. The reason they did that is because we've made it so incredibly difficult and expensive through government intervention to do business in the United States that it is cheaper to tear down a factory here, to abandon a factory here, rebuild it somewhere else, create and retrain workers over there, put something on a boat and then ship it back here. It's cheaper to do that than it is to just make it in the United States. And that's not just a function of labor costs. That is taxes. That is regulations. That is what's going on. And that is all based on government intervention into the marketplace. But nobody wants to talk about that.
Making it easier for the wealthy and powerful to gain further legal changes that ratchet even more wealth and power upward.
And there you go. Another terrible Robert Reich video showing a complete lack of understanding of why the economy is functioning the way that it is, completely trying to obfuscate the fact that this is largely a result of government intervention into the marketplace and a failure to allow the free market to function properly.